webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Fiber Broadband Association webinar entitled Case Study, Deploying a Teleworker SASE Solution Across 26 Countries, presented by Adtran. I'm Trish Ehlers, Senior Director of Membership, Industry Affairs, and Operations for the FBA. We have three presenters today. We're very lucky to have them all. First, Michael McFarland is responsible for product management and marketing at Benu Networks with over 20 years of networking and telecom experience. Next, David La Cagnina focuses, and I apologize if I messed that up, David, you can correct me later, focuses on Wi-Fi and broadband access customer premise solutions at Adtran. And finally, Robert Conger is the SVP Technology and Strategy and CTO for Adtran. So thank you all for joining us. Just a few housekeeping issues before we get started. All participants are in listen-only mode. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so you can submit your questions using the question box on the control panel at the right side of your screen. This presentation is being recorded and will be available to members only on FBA's website within 24 hours. You can find the recording in the Events tab under the webinar drop-down option. At the conclusion of the presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a very brief feedback survey. We do appreciate your input on those. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Saoirse Hinksman, who is the marketing manager at Benu Networks. Saoirse,
thanks, Trish.
Pass over, you bet.
Okay. All right, just to confirm that everybody can see my screen properly before we jump in. Right, awesome. Okay, so as you guys know, we kind of introduced our speakers a little bit already, but just to give a face to the name here, we have some great people lined up to take us through our case study, essentially walking through how one of our joint customers has now deployed a SASE teleworker solution across 26 countries, which is super exciting for both of us, from an Adtran perspective and from a Benu Networks perspective. And so what we wanted to do today was really walk you through how that's possible, what that process looked like for our customer, what were some of the needs and the requirements that they really needed to make sure that they were tackling in a way that made sense for them. And so given all of those things, what we're going to do today is give you a quick overview of Benu Networks and Adtran. We'll go through the market opportunity, what really stirred the need and the requirements building for a teleworker or a remote workforce solution. And then understanding how our customer got to the conclusion that they did and identified the Benu Networks and the Adtran solution together, and how that built a really complete framework and solution for them to be able to deploy across 26 different countries to tackle the problems that we'll walk through today. We have time set aside at the end for questions, but if at any point you have a question, feel free to put it into the question box and I'll try and get them answered as quickly as we can. To give everybody a little bit of context to Benu Networks, we are established in 2010, so we've actually been around for quite a while. But as I'm sure that you guys are familiar with, you may not be as familiar with Benu Networks as a name, and that's totally okay. That's something that we're working on, obviously, but we've really worked actively in the background for the last decade. Our mission is to really simplify the edge to make it easier for operators to deliver great user experiences without jumping through as many hoops as maybe they have in the past. We're an industry leader in software-defined edge solutions, which we'll talk a little bit more about throughout the process of this webinar. And we're really engineering-led, so we love to make that a point because that obviously we want to name the faces behind this team, but really we take pride in the fact that a lot of the work that we're doing is split between making sure that our customers are able to do what they need to be able to satisfy their customers. And then on top of that, we're really trying to pioneer innovations in the space. So identifying areas that maybe aren't working as well as they could and innovating from there to deliver solutions to make sure that not only can operators deliver what they want, but at the end of the day, end users are also satisfied with that as well. Our solution's been deployed globally, as you can see, across a variety of different types of operators. So it really speaks to the versatility of our platform and the robustness that it has, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And to give you some sort of context or foundation for how much traffic we carry across our platform, we actually handle over 7 petabytes of data a day and connect over 24 million wireless LAN, APs, and CPE gateways. So our product is tried and true, tested across globally, really, and we're really, really proud of that. And we work with some great partners, as you can see listed at the bottom, including Adtran. So, Robert, I'll hand it over to you to give us a little overview on Adtran.
Thank you for that. And then, so Adtran's been around 35 years. We're focused on fiber-based broadband connectivity. We provide everything from the infrastructure side of things all the way through to premise-based solutions for connecting the home and business, and cloud-based software to kind of manage the end-to-end subscriber experience. So that's Adtran's role in this. Next, I want to kind of frame up the market opportunity. So today we're predominantly focused on SASE, kind of a work-from-home type platform as a service effectively, and the market opportunity for the service providers to, I guess, participate in that market opportunity. So you kind of look at, I think everyone, great example today is we're all kind of work from home right now, this webinar. The challenges that I think everybody's probably familiar with is how do you ensure a quality performance and security and kind of manage the end users in a work from home environment, the same type of tools and tracking and capabilities you would have on an on-premise type environment. So I think from both the employer and the employee, there's lots of great benefits, but along with those benefits are some challenges. And so most of that is around securing the connectivity and ensuring the performance of the network in a distributed workforce environment. So if we look at the next slide, and you look at we call it a trend, but that trend we kind of implied maybe it's a temporary thing. This is really here to stay. There's benefits are so significant. I think that most employers and employees have realized over the past year that the distributed workforce is something that we're going to continue to see, whether that's in a full work from home type environment or in many cases a hybrid environment. Like in our case at Adtran, we're looking at significantly expanding the more of the hybrid environment where employees are home on a more frequent basis, going forward, even beyond this year as things hopefully get back more to a normalized state. We still expect to have a much more distributed workforce than any of us would have envisioned just over 12 months ago. And the reasons for that are pretty simple. The employees like it, and it makes a lot of good business sense for the companies. There's a lot of reduction in real estate footprint, a lot of time that employees spend commuting back and forth to the work, availability of access to talent in different parts of different geographies. If you can really effectively connect your employees, there's a lot of benefits to be had to the employer side of things. But it all comes back to, can you do that in a way that ensures that you still have the same type of connectivity that you would in an on-premise based environment, as well as can you really track the performance and the availability uptime when employees are working from home and complain about different service quality experience issues? Do you have a means to track and manage that and ensure a more robust connectivity while creating more of a secure environment? If I look at the different options, so if you first started out a year ago, you said, okay, I'm going to connect a bunch of remote users, your options were somewhat more limited. It's generally just best effort, it's just you can get internet access with a remote VPN, but it's kind of more of your just general best effort environment. As we kind of continue to see the explosion of video conferencing and 4K video connectivity, obviously you're going to, the amount of issues you may run into will kind of increase as the amount of bandwidth that, kind of strains those connections. So things like quality of service, security, and other things become a much more prominent role if you're going to use this on a more permanent basis. Now, the vendor pool that you may have used to provide those types of solutions typically were more enterprise grade solutions. So they're generally used to connect remote offices, and the price points were, commensurate with that. If I'm going to scale this out to, thousands or, hundreds of thousands of individual users, depending on the size of the corporation, they're going to need something that, is more aligned from a price point perspective, functionality perspective, with that large scale distributed work environment. Now, there's a great opportunity for the service providers in this, in that as the provider of the infrastructure connecting those employees, they have a lot more control and benefit, a lot more they can offer, to the employers, and the employees connecting to the service in terms of end-to-end, QoS control, better insight, security, centralized security and enforcement. And so that's what we'll really focus on today when we talk about a scalable SASE solution. So, and then ultimately, from a market opportunity for the service providers is quite significant. So if you look at, there's definitely a premium to be had for this type of managed work from home as a service. It bundles security, more of a managed Wi-Fi, managed remote worker connectivity platform. If you look at the, just charging a fairly modest, $20, $30 per sub per month type incremental connectivity, that adds up to a significant. We look at the number of employees in a work from home environment. And also, as you gain those subscribers, the churn rate would reduce significantly. So not, as you can roll out a platform that's really an optimized work from home platform, there's not only a propensity to pay for that because of the value being offered, but also keeping and attaching those customers in the long term. There's a significant improvement there from a service provider standpoint. So with that, I'll hand it to Mike to kind of go through the next level of details on the Edge platform.
Thanks, Robert. So the next set of slides are actually slides we received from one of our customers rolling out the solution across their footprint. And what they did was they went and had conversations with some of their enterprise customers. And these were some of the things that they heard back. So first one, in just going from left to right, I want my home workers to participate in Microsoft Teams calls without impact from Netflix, Xbox, Google Zoom, etc. So the request here from a technical standpoint, right, is some sort of bandwidth prioritization for different devices and applications. The next one was remote workers blame bad internet for lower productivity. I need to monitor and dispute that. And so that's coming from, the leaders of the company concerned that, their employees are not working and they don't necessarily have the right analytics in place. The next one was prevent home workers from navigating to known malware sites. So obviously, when everyone's in an office and in a corporate environment, they're normally behind a sophisticated security device. However, when they're working from home and if they're accessing cloud applications in the internet from home, using their work-based laptop or a PC or phones, it's going to be exposed now to all kinds of threats that they are no longer really protected from, because most home gateways, home Wi-Fi doesn't have sophisticated security controls. So that's a huge issue. And so then the next item, the fourth item there is prioritize real-time applications like VoIP, particularly for like call centers. There's a lot of call centers that, if you think about it, were completely disrupted. Everyone had to start working from home. And that's a particularly challenging environment because voice calls are so critical for the user experience if you're doing a support call. The fifth one there is have the possibility to securely route traffic to the enterprise headquarters without the hassle of a VPN client. So a lot of IT managers were and continue to be frustrated with VPN clients. There can be all kinds of software conflict issues with different operating systems on different types of devices, whether it be a laptop or a PC. There's no real support for any kind of IoT devices that might need connectivity. So being able to have a secure connection into the enterprise headquarters for everything that was in the home office was particularly valuable. And then the last one was, and this is more sort of the carrier's perspective, they wanted to avoid cannibalization of their B2C revenue. So they were selling basically a second line for their distributed workforce connections. And if the employees were to then use that second line, that work line for or work connection for all their regular home broadband needs, whether it be streaming videos or gaming, next thing you know, they might just get rid of that that consumer broadband connection. And so they didn't want to have that cannibalization. And of course, the employer, if they're paying for a second connection, you know, to have good performance, they actually don't want someone using that then for all their, you know, gaming and streaming, while really the purpose is to make sure the calls are clear and the video conferencing is going well. So these were some of the things they needed to address, and they looked at a wide variety of alternatives. They thought about just throwing bandwidth at it, but of course that doesn't address the security or the analytics needs. They also looked at third-party teleworker gateways, which, you know, in triple play bundles, those didn't really have a good match. They considered full-fledged SD-WAN solutions, although those were very expensive and out of the price point for most enterprises. And they also looked at just plain vanilla VPN connectivity, but of course, a lot of the enterprises were complaining about that as something that's a real headache to manage. So, so they had to find something else. And one of the things they also looked at in detail was sort of this over-to-the-top SASE approach. So can we use a SASE solution? And the challenge they saw here was that the SASE stands for Secure Access Service Edge. It's a way to enable security from the network rather than putting an on-premise security appliance. And I guess we're going to the poll right now, but just to finish up on that slide, the downside, of course, of having that over-the-top SASE solution is you're at the whim of the internet. It actually, the SASE instance is very far from the edge of the network, where you want to do the security, where you want to do QoS, where you want to do all the bandwidth prioritization and analytics. And so the carriers have a lot of control over these access networks, since they provide broadband to so many people, and so they have a way to integrate that into their access networks. So that's one of the things they decided to move forward with versus something that was over the top. I'll now let people read through this question here. Are you currently trying to solve a remote work connectivity problem?
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close it for right now. It looks like most people actually said that they haven't tried to tackle this problem yet. And actually, one of the reasons why I started to launch this poll in the first place, I apologize, didn't mean to launch it in that exact sentence, was I actually was curious to understand whether for the people, the 40% of people who said that they 38% who said that they are actually working to fix this connectivity challenge. Are you guys looking at this in a similar way, where you're trying to understand whether or not to secure the network from more of an outside-in approach, so what Mike had just gone over and it's listed on the slide, or more of an inside-out approach, trying to approach it from securing the network from the inside and then delivering connectivity to subscribers that way? And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about this. There's no right or wrong answer. We're just trying to understand, where everybody's at, and we'll present sort of how our customers are tackling this using our joint solution in the following slides. I'll let you guys vote for a little longer. I should have got my Jeopardy music to play during this. Okay. So it seems like out of the people who have voted so far, and there are a couple people now, as I'm saying this, more people are voting, so maybe I should just wait. Okay. Oof, we are neck and neck with inside and out versus outside in. So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. Ultimately, we ended up getting 51% of people saying that they're trying to secure the network from the inside out. which is great. We'll talk a little bit more about how we can help with that. And then we have 49% of people saying that they're using the over-the-top approach that Mike had just gone over.
Very interesting. So what this is showing here is your typical sort of over-the-top solution where traffic gets basically somehow tunneled over to the SASE instance in red. Goes across, you know, your broadband network and your network gateway, and then over the internet. And like I mentioned, these are sort of at the mercy of the internet in terms of QoS, you know, like application prioritization, bandwidth prioritization. You also, if you need to use some sort of secure tunnel because otherwise you're, you know, at the security exposure to the internet. And actually skips over kind of where the real service edge. So it's interesting that it's called secure access service edge because it's not really it's not very close to the actual service edge for an actual broadband user, whether it's a branch office or a home. So instead of this approach, our customers have been looking at the combined Adtran and Bennu solution, and what you can see on the next slide is how it addresses some of the key needs. So within the enterprise, there's kind of 4 key things. One is the bandwidth controls to prioritize the teleworker. The second is the security, but they also have noted that they want security at device level. So like specific policies for different types of devices, you know, whether they're a phone or a laptop or different types of employees, and also IoT devices in some cases. Their preference is not to have any VPN clients that they have to manage. And then they, of course, have applications in public cloud, private cloud, in the, you know, usually in some sort of data center, oftentimes in the headquarters where they'd like to have a VPN connection into, and of course they need internet access. And in some cases, the QoS and security should be actually different for each of these. So being able to tailor that, and also then, of course, restrict the internet to business usage if the employer is paying for this. For the carrier, you know, they want to leverage their CPE footprint within homes and businesses. They don't want to have to go and ship out new equipment, which is expensive, also causes a lot of customer care requests. They also want to leverage their network footprint. But at the same time, of course, they also have to support out of footprint connectivity, because not every single branch office or employee is necessarily one of their broadband customers. So they have to have a solution for that. The other thing is the customer actually who is that's rolling this out across, you know, 26 countries from the title of this this webinar. They specifically want to sell it through 2 channels, both B2B and B2C. So in the case of B2B, it's straightforward. You sell it as like a service to an entire enterprise. For B2C, it's more for individual employees who feel that, particularly if they're having performance issues with their connectivity, they can now kind of boost the performance of specific applications or specific devices versus others in their home. And then the last one is multi-layered management. You want to be able to manage as an ISP, you know, the enterprise accounts. The enterprise itself may want to manage their teleworker accounts and branch accounts, and so usually the IT would be involved in that. Unless it's a fully managed service, you know, the ISP might do that for them. And then you also want to have a separate UI in case the teleworker is allowed to, you know, make some modifications, particularly if it's a B2C sale. The teleworker needs to be able to set that up and identify which things to be prioritized. So the combined solution here, you know, really addresses all these key needs from the research that both our carrier customers have done, as well as our own research with some of the large enterprises, as well as mid-market companies. Okay, so if we keep going, I think we should discuss how to deploy such a solution and what does it look like. So in traditional networking and security connectivity, if in this model where you have a lot of branches, a lot of teleworkers, you have an enormously complex network because you have perhaps IPsec tunnels going in from each single endpoint location to your headquarters where you have various applications residing. You also have connectivity going to public clouds and private clouds. You probably would have to put a security appliance or something in place at every single site, which gets very expensive. And so there's a lot of cost, both upfront and then ongoing in terms of running this network. So the way we've approached this is to take a more SASE-based approach where we're moving the traffic into more of an aggregation point at the Benu Networks SASE gateway. And so the traffic's coming over the broadband network, it's consolidated there, and that is where we apply enterprise class security policies. And that is also where we would then route the traffic, essentially using SD-WAN capabilities, either to the headquarters or to a private cloud or whatnot. And so not only do you have, so there's tremendous benefits come with this. And the list of benefits is that you get massive savings on hardware equipment. You don't have to put an appliance at every single endpoint location. Massive savings on the software licensing. Usually any kind of security appliance has a fair amount of software licensing every year to keep it updated. It's much simpler to configure and manage, easier to roll out, and very easy to add sites. Not only give to ship out new equipment, you don't have to onboard, get customer care calls like this new Wi-Fi device conflicts with my other Wi-Fi device, and things like that. And then the other thing is you have elastic scalability. So if you want to add new security capabilities as an enterprise, you simply can get that enabled in the network via your carrier partner. And the carrier itself also has an opportunity now to upsell to higher levels of security services and drive more revenue, more value for the enterprise customer over time without having to change really any of the infrastructure. So if you're doing this kind of capability inside the broadband access network, your homes and businesses now will connect through a SASE gateway. And the SASE gateway will then route the traffic to the appropriate location. The traffic is brought over either via a GRE tunnel, or it could be over some sort of IPsec tunnel or encrypted tunnel. And this is the way you are doing security before reaching the internet, which is best. And also you're doing QoS at the edge of the network, which is the best way. And then you also have these other set of benefits that you can use low-cost compatible Wi-Fi APs and CPEs. You don't, and for our customers, Adtran is the preferred solution for those CPEs. There's no VPN clients involved, and you can support all the devices in the home or branch office, whether they be servers or desktops or IoT devices or whatnot. It doesn't require being able to support a VPN client, and it doesn't have to be a mobile device, to justify being part of this SASE solution. The last benefit is that you can optimize via SD-WAN the application routing to these various locations. And because carriers have so many different points of presence, you can really do a good job of optimizing that depending on how these SASE gateways are placed relative to where private cloud or public cloud instances would be. Now, the other option they have is to run these services directly in their broadband network gateway. Bennu has a cloud-native broadband network gateway. We just announced actually today that we have integrated our SASE solution into the BNG, such that they can be run natively as like a MEC service within the BNG. I guess the key benefits here is that it really expands the number of CPE that would support this. Pretty much any CPE would support this, and you don't have to use any tunneling capabilities. So it's a more native support for SASE. You might still use a SASE gateway for over-the-top instances that are coming from third-party carriers, and so there's still a little bit of tunneling that might be involved for out-of-footprint. But for anything that's in your network footprint as a carrier, you would be able to support this natively, basically, in your broadband network. So we have a pretty broad suite of features that come with this solution. And they range from offering some things that are a little bit more home-oriented, like parental controls, but also scheduled access, was of interest to some of the enterprise customers. You know, they have some employees working from home, or they're truly like 9 to 5 employees, and they don't necessarily want them having access to various applications in the middle of the night, because that's, you know, stuff that they don't want to have to do additional monitoring of. They were interested in fingerprinting and identifying specific devices, particularly IoT devices, and thereby then allowing for automated policy setup. So as an example, if you have some sort of sensor that's an IoT device or a security camera of some sort at a branch office, that device doesn't need to talk to really anything on the internet except for probably its cloud controller. So you can now put a policy in place to restrict its communications to just that cloud controller, thereby eliminating the effect of any hacking that might occur on it, because there would be no way for the hackers to reach it or for them to control it. And then, of course, we have more advanced security capabilities that we layer on, like firewall, DOS, protection. There's malware and phishing protection. If you want to take it to the next level, we also do some third-party integrations for sandboxing, IDS, antivirus, whatnot. And then we can layer on static IP solutions as well for branch offices, typically, not necessarily for teleworkers as much. Yeah, and then SD-WAN capabilities are, you know, sort of baked into this solution. So the other thing that we do is we support something called software-defined LAN in this architecture. There's 2 ways to do this. On the residential business CPE, we actually move the DHCP, NAT, and DNS functions over to the BNG, such that we have now extended the LAN actually out to us. So we have like this basically software-defined LAN. And we are now have better access to understanding which devices are in the network, and you know, we are assigning the IP addresses to them within that private network, within the branch or the home. It gives us a lot more control, almost as if we're a security appliance right on premise, so you get all the same benefits. The other approach is via a tunnel, an SD-LAN, using a layer 2 tunnel, and that's going into our SASE gateway. And this is, you know, the solution Adtran supports this SD-LAN tunnel completely, so that's why they're such a great partner in this solution. And that gives us all that device service granularity, so tailored IoT devices, gaming device policies, teleworker device policies, and it also just makes, you know, CPE management, you know, a little simpler. So the other thing that we've done with this solution is we've pre-packaged the user interfaces. So this can be leveraging either the Bennu cloud, or sometimes carriers like the case example we're using in this one, where they're rolling it out across 26 countries. They have enough footprint. It was worth it to them to build their own cloud service. So they've taken our software and they have basically 4 different types of user interfaces. One is for them as an ISP. The next one is for the enterprise IT, which is more for them to manage their individual sites, both branches and teleworker sites. The teleworker has also a user interface. Some enterprises don't allow access to that, some do. And then there's a guest network manager that's really more for branch offices, where you would have a guest network, particularly like retail branches, where the guest network is actually kind of a critical, sometimes a critical piece of the experience if you're like a coffee shop or someplace where people like to get on the Wi-Fi. So the nice thing about this is it's a full solution for, you know, not only the ISP, but also the enterprise. The operators don't really need to build anything. So if you're, particularly if you're trying to get to market fast, or you're a smaller carrier, doesn't have a lot of resources to build these kind of user interfaces, this is all done for you, and you know, minimal upfront investment because it's all packaged up. And we have a pay-as-you-grow licensing model, so you can start off, you know, very cost effectively to get started. So I'm going to hand it over to David at this point and talk about, you know, a very critical and essential piece of this solution, which is the endpoint that is in the homes and businesses.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so to start out, in 2021, we're bringing several new Teleworker CPE to market, all with a similar experience. So you can see in the image there in the foreground, you can see we've got a gateway that the intent here is such that the operator or the service provider can deploy these in customers or subscribers' homes, not as a new separate work appliance that's dedicated only to the work from home aspect, but a converged device that can serve as the residential gateway, carrying all the subscribers' internet traffic, all their everything they're doing as a resident, if you will, as a consumer, but also carrying the Teleworker application. And so from a platform perspective, we've got 4 models coming out this year. The intent here to start is to deliver flexible WAN technology such that these devices can be deployed behind any broadband access technology, whether it be fiber, cable, DSL, or even wireless broadband access. We can suit the various speed needs, so we can scale from gigabit all the way to 2.5 gigabit in this generation. So not just something perhaps like if you think about perhaps older generation appliances, they typically don't scale to gigabit and beyond. It's certainly not at these lower price points where they'd be suitable and palatable to be deployed within a residential user's home. And from a Wi-Fi perspective, of course, Wi-Fi is internet, and certainly most of the subscribers' devices nowadays are connecting over Wi-Fi. So of course, we'll have various Wi-Fi options. So if you want the very latest in Wi-Fi, you can go to Wi-Fi 6, the very newest generation of Wi-Fi technology. You can also hang back a little bit and go with the more mature technology in Wi-Fi 5, just to suit the various price points or speeds you're trying to deliver. So some flexibility there as well, but all with a common look and feel, and all delivering the Bennu distributed workforce service. The next slide just is kind of a little bit of a reference chart of these 4 devices we'll be launching in 2021. Starting next month, we'll bring the service out on a legacy device, our top of the line, top selling residential gateway that's called the SR400AC, which is a Wi-Fi 5 generation residential gateway. And then 3 new Wi-Fi 6, a new Wi-Fi 5 platform there in the second column, which is just going to be our top of the line Wi-Fi 5 gateway. And then 2 new Wi-Fi 6 gateways for 2021. You can see there in maybe the top row is the easiest one to notate there with the access technology. So you can have a gigabit Ethernet or this combo Ethernet, combo WAN, where we can support up to 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, as well as an SFP cage for those operators who are deploying PON services, for instance, or active Ethernet. You can slide in an optical module and take advantage of that right in the gateway. And then just again, very affordable. These are list prices. I think you'll agree that these are very competitive and very affordable for what the product is delivering. So that about sums it up.
And kind of looking beyond the kind of the initial endpoint, another feature that's being widely adopted right now is whole home mesh Wi-Fi for gigabit delivery throughout the home. And so the solutions do incorporate managed mesh Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 5, and now quickly move into Wi-Fi 6 throughout the home. Includes a mobile app for the end user to kind of customer self-manage their in-home environment, but also a set of cloud tools that are accessible for the service provider to help manage that end-to-end user experience. A lot of those tools can also be made available to the enterprise themselves, to kind of help manage the end user experience in the home environment. So a lot of flexibility there, proactive notification, other capabilities to kind of help, provide a much more robust Wi-Fi experience with a lot more manageability tools for the end user, for the service provider, and for the enterprise themselves. And last slide on I'll let Mike wrap it up right after this, but when we take a step back and look at the broader work from home, platforms and how to build a better work from home experience, a lot of that comes back to, these consumers are connecting through broadband access more and more now. That's fiber access, and more than ever before, that's 10 gig capable fiber access solutions. That's where Adtran's really built a leadership position, so you can kind of better mix residential and work from home users and small business users in a a common fiber access infrastructure. There is this broader push towards customer-driven managed mesh Wi-Fi that I just mentioned. That's becoming more and more an essential component of the work from home users broadband service offering, and some really intelligent software in the cloud to kind of manage the end-to-end network infrastructure and in-home user experience as part of that. And that's really Adtran's focus in this. Bennu provides a lot of intelligence in the cloud to kind of enforce a lot of security and other functions we talked about, the site-to-site connectivity back to the campus. Adtran provides a lot of the infrastructure and on in-home type connectivity as the other part of that solution. So, Mike, I'll let you close out here.
Yeah, so just in terms of some of the key benefits of the joint solution, one is you get to leverage a mass market residential gateway platform for teleworkers that has all these capabilities, in combination with the Bennu software running in the network. So it's easier to roll out, also lower cost. You have the option to sell either B2B or B2C as a carrier, which is particularly useful. And you also have support for out of footprint, but you're still leveraging your network wherever you can, which gives the optimal user experience. And so, there's obviously benefits to that. You have advanced device level controls, and that allows you to tailor your QoS and SASE for each device. And that's, from talking to various enterprise customers that have, using this solution, that's been an essential requirement for them. And we don't see that going, that probably will continue to be very important as cybersecurity becomes more and more important to enterprises with all the hacking that's going on out there, particularly the phishing attacks that are wreaking havoc for a lot of enterprises. And the last one is, this prepackaged multi-layer management for the ISP, for the IT within the enterprise, as well as end user, allows for a very fast time to market, rollout, ease of deployment, minimal investment upfront. And so these solutions, these benefits really stand out relative to some of these other vendors that are, going after, teleworker enterprise solutions. But I think the carriers really have the leg up here, and I think it's been great to partner with some of them on these rollouts, particularly some very broad ones, like we mentioned earlier. So I think at this point we've got fortunately some time for questions, and would look forward to answering whatever questions you might have.
Thank you, everybody. So we have a bunch of questions in here. I'm just going to try and get through them in order if I can. So let me see if I can open this. So are all work from home employees eligible for home office tax deduction? So that actually, I can just go ahead and tackle that. I think that's totally dependent on the employee, or the employer, sorry, not the employee. Obviously, every employee would want to be able to do that. So I am not sure. I think you would have to, this would totally depend on your situation. I think generally, yes, there are some tax deductions available for when you work from home. If you have a home, if your business is in your home, I know for a fact you can. I would just actually, I'm not sure on the specifics of that. I don't know if anybody on the panel wants to touch on that. If you guys have any more specific information on that.
I'm not an accountant, but I think that depends a lot on W-2 versus 1099 type status and other factors. I have been more work from home for a while, so I do, at least my personal experience, I have a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah. So
I don't know all the technical details, but I can't even get my bank to answer tax advice questions for everything too, and then a tax accountant. So I think I'm going to stay away from that one. But I believe for some people it would definitely be eligible.
Yeah, absolutely reach out to your accountant friends. That's one thing that I think they are, I'm sure, prepared to answer that in particular this year, because I would imagine that's one of the top questions that they're getting at the moment. So definitely reach out to them. The next question would be, does this work if customers have different ISPs? Like if somebody has Virgin Media, Vodafone, etc.
Yeah, I'll start with that. So it definitely does. So, and that's what we meant by for out of footprint. So if you have employees that are on a variety of different carriers, obviously if you're using one of the carriers as your provider for this Teleworker SASE solution, they will enable the service both within their footprint, but they can also then support out of footprint. The difference in architecture is perhaps none, because they may just use our SASE gateway for the entire solution, and essentially it would. But of course, when you do it in footprint, they have a little bit more control because it's their network, and versus some third-party network. So the only thing they may not be as willing to guarantee would be sort of bandwidth performance or things like that, which would be sort of out of their control. But they could certainly do the security, and they can certainly do the analytics. They can also do any kind of individual device policies and scheduled access, things like that. It's just they wouldn't have full control over the bandwidth prioritization and usage on the third-party network.
Okay, great. The next question is, can this solution be used on a 4G dongle connection?
David or Robert, you guys want to take that, or?
Yeah, there are capabilities for what I'd call more hybrid access, or for primary connectivity on a fixed WAN connection, backup to 4G, 5G, or use 4G, 5G as a primary type of service. There are possibilities to do that as well.
Okay, great. This is actually for the next question is for the Adtran team as well. So what Wi-Fi chipset do you have in the CPEs?
Yes, so it's a mix. David can comment on this as well. He's an expert in this area, but we have built an OS that one of its unique differentiators is its multi-silicon capability. So we use a range of Broadcom, MediaTek, other silicon options for connectivity. So it's more and more important this year than ever because of the supply chain constraints in the industry and chip shortages with different fabs or different semiconductor manufacturers. So the short answer is that there's a mix of silicon options available.
Great. And then also for the Adtran team, does the gateway have redundancy / failover alternative like USB dongle or Ethernet for 4G, 5G?
Yeah, that's short answer. Yeah, that was like in the previous question. I was going to mention the same thing, which is yes, that is a possibility.
Great. All right. So let me just scroll down here. So can the teleworker solution be managed by the resident / employee, or is there a portal for this?
Absolutely. So particularly important for any kind of B2C sale. So if the carrier is selling directly to consumers and that consumer is an employee somewhere, they want to expense that, maybe to their employer, but they're doing that with a justification that they need the prioritization of their voice calls or video calls over maybe other things that might be going over the network, like gaming and whatnot. Then obviously they would need a user interface, set that up themselves since there's no enterprise IT involved. And so we'd have definitely accommodated for that. So it is supported.
Yeah, and the same is true on the in-home side of things as well, as far as the actual managed Wi-Fi component for the in-home user.
Okay. And then is there any restriction for the number of devices connected to the Adtran devices?
David, you have to answer the scale. I know it's a big number.
The client counts, and Yes, there is a restriction, but it's pretty reasonable. We typically max out at 254 devices. The devices can't even support multi-netting to exceed that, but we've not really seen any residential users or SOHO scenarios or that require more than that. But yes, that's our max today.
Awesome. Okay, does the Teleworker solution help provide any additional network visibility / analytics?
Yeah, for sure. So we have analytics on usage by different devices, bandwidth usage, application usage. So you can see what applications are being used. That's probably one of the most used analytic items by enterprise to sort of see what are employees actually using. And sometimes it's been insightful for them, not just in the context of Teleworker, but just in general, of like, here's what employees are using mostly. There's also, threats detected and prevented. So you can look at those and you can look at trends over time to see if there's been a spike in those. So there's actually a pretty broad set of analytics, and then you can draw down reports, whether it be, from last week or last month, or you can even get a whole year history. So there is a lot of analytics, because that's kind of one of the key things enterprises want. And of course, carriers want some of that data as well, just to understand what's going over their network. How do they optimize that network, in the best way possible? So, yeah, it's the deep packet inspection capabilities are quite broad on the Bennu solution, and so we take a look at everything that's flowing through.
And I'd note that there is a way to segment, personal traffic and devices from, workers' device, like computers and laptops and others needed for work connectivity. So you could set up different SSIDs, only the traffic, destined for enterprise to enterprise type connectivity. So for end users maybe concerned about who has visibility and what they're, seeing at home, I mean, there is ability to do that segmentation so that only the work-related traffic and those devices, work-related devices, connect through the, work from home platform, we call it, and then the personal traffic and devices could still be segmented out, but still using the same end device in the home, or devices in the case of mesh Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. So the personal residential traffic does not go through the Teleworker SASE gateway. It actually just is like normal broadband, has the same, privacy aspects to it. When it's an enterprise work solution where you've extended the enterprise network out to a home, that's where you're using usually a separate SSID. That's typical deployment. In fact, we don't have any that aren't like that. It's a separate SSID, it's a separate VLAN, and a separate tunnel of traffic that is treated completely differently. So I didn't want, it's good you clarified that, Robert, because it's really a service that is for the enterprise.
Awesome. Okay, so we have, I believe this is going to be, well, I guess we have a couple more minutes, but I was going to say this might be the last question if we have time to go into this a little bit. Is there a limit or a restriction on the number of Adtran devices that can connect to the SASE-enabled Bennu device? So I think what they mean by this is the B&G on the Bennu side. So is there a current limitation or restriction for those?
So I don't know if I know the numbers off the top of my head, but our gateway can support hundreds of thousands of connections from different CPE devices. If you get sort of the maximum, if you put it on a large server, one of the largest servers. If you're doing more of a distributed rollout where you're putting multiple gateways but smaller, then obviously you wouldn't need to reach that maximum probably of hundreds of thousands of endpoints per node. So there's different ways to architect this and roll it out, but I think there's no real limit to the overall rollout of the solution. You can support as many as you need.
Okay. In the combined solution, the IDS is going to sit on Bennu devices. Does the Adtran device is going to have any IDS or something similar to IDS?
Well, one comment, I guess, in the IDS, basically, everything's kind of network based in the SASE model, right? The user plane traffic traverses through the Bennu platform, so you centralize a lot of those policy enforcement functions there at the Bennu virtualized SASE platform. In addition to that, there are some additional capabilities you can embed in the CPE to augment that. So it's kind of, but I think the broader from a enterprise capability, manage that in a centralized location. That's one of the primary benefits of the SASE platform.
We have another question for the Adtran team. What would be the power consumption of the device?
David,
So talking around the range of 20 to 30 watts. I think the highest end model, when you plug in say an XGS PON ONT, scales to about 36 to 40 watts if memory serves off the top of my head. But we're talking residential grade appliances here, not the kind of stuff you'd sit in a server rack. So.
It's very comparable to traditional in-home gateways that are on you're used to today.
Alrighty, and actually the last question is, will there be more information available after this? I think that's a pertinent one to end on. So yes, there's always more information available. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions, or maybe there's more specific questions that are applicable to your unique case or situation, or users. So just let us know. Feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to jump on a call with anybody and help them understand how to help serve, obviously, your subscribers better, and be able to obviously expand your margin and your revenue in a way that makes sense for your business as well. So thank you, everybody, for your time. If there's any more questions, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're more than happy to give you some more info.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Saoirse, and thank you to the Bennu and Adtran teams. Just a reminder that we do have Fiber for Breakfast tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, and we're talking about the rural broadband opportunity from a Wall Street perspective. So you can sign up online and join us with that. But thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and we will see you on our next webinar. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Thank you.